I'ma keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. I'ma keep winning, winning. You can try to save yourself, but you only go.
What's going on, guys? Jake Ham back with another video, and today I'm going to be reacting to Dane Brugler's NFL mock draft that he had just came out with today. But before we hop into it, please make sure to like the video and subscribe to my channel for more NFL content that I'm going to be coming out with the NFL Combine, free agency, NFL Draft, and the playoffs. So please make sure you're up to date with that by subscribing to my YouTube channel and hitting that subscribe button. But for this mock draft that Mr. Brugler just put out today on The Athletic. I have not looked at this whatsoever at all, and this is going to be my first reaction. Haven't looked at a single one of the picks besides the very first one. And so it's going to be very interesting because he talks about Travis Hunter. How high is he going to go? He mentions in here that this is a very bad QB class, but a lot of teams are going to be QB needy and desperate and overdraft a lot of them, which is a very accurate statement for this draft class. So, number one, Tennessee Titans. He has the Tennessee Titans taking Cam Ward. He talks about the new general manager is going to be inheriting the number one pick. This is something I would do. I would take Cam Ward. He's the number one quarterback in the draft for me. He's the more toolsy guys, you would say. He has the great arm. He has the great pocket presence. He is kind of more raw, though, and you're kind of betting on the potential. But in my opinion, I would rather go for the home run swing than the single on the Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward. I'd rather go for the home run guy and go for Cam Ward. In my opinion, I think his calmness, which a lot of people actually don't like, I think it's actually going to play very well for him in the NFL because he's not going to get kind of overran and kind of messed up mentally. I think he's going to stay calm. He's been in multiple systems throughout college. I think he's been to 3 different colleges, learn 3 different systems. So that shows a good thing for NFL scouts that he's able to come in, produce at a high level because he's gotten better and better in each college system as he's gotten older, making almost a Heisman run for at University of Miami. So this is something I agree with. This is something I would do. Now, whenever they first got the pick and they had their GM was very fond and rumored to be a fan of Cam Ward, and he actually became the betting favorite. Once he got fired and the Titans are now looking for a new GM, Shedeur Sanders now becomes the betting favorite for the number one overall pick. So guess we'll really know what's gonna happen after they draft their GM. Not draft. Once they hire their new GM. But this is what I would do. Some people want Shedeur with he's more of the safer bet, although he might not be the home run pick. I think both of them are a very high bust rate, but I think Cam Ward is going to be the guy that, if he does hit, he's going to be a superstar in the league. And I personally really do like Cam Ward in this draft, so I would take him number one, and this makes the most sense to me. Now, he talked about Travis Hunter. Let's see if he has him going number two. Okay, interesting. Kind of spoiled the third one. But number two, he has the Cleveland Browns going with Abdul Carter. And I think after that Notre Dame Penn State game, I know a lot of people are going to have this more commonly, or at least having him going number four to the Patriots, at least. I think after showing him and then in the combine, whenever that comes up in February, I think that he's really going to show out the combine, and people are going to look at that tape from Notre Dame. I think he's really going to rise up boards from the mid, like 6, 7 pick to, I think he's at least going to go number four to the Patriots, and he could even go like this one, number two, the Cleveland Browns. This is something that I might have in my next mock draft because he has been seen as one of the most talented players in this draft to this point. As an edge rusher, he's just all over the field. You can line him up in the middle, and he's just one of those guys that see ball and he's going to find the ball. He's going to see ball, hit ball. He's going to go make the play. He's going to be able to read it. And if you put him on the edge, he's going to be pass rusher. It's just going to make his move and pretty much abuse the tackle and get to the quarterback. So I think this is going to be a very famous, popular pick. This or Travis Hunter. I don't necessarily see the Cleveland Browns going quarterback, especially with Shedeur Sanders on the board. I definitely think that they're going to try to go into the veteran market, maybe a Justin Fields hits free agency. The rumor right now is that they're going to push very hard for Kirk Cousins whenever the Falcons move on, if they move on to Michael Penix, if they're going to keep Kirk around as a backup, or he's probably going to want to play as a starter, so they're probably going to have to cut him or let him go or whatever they're going to do, end up trading him. But that's apparently the rumor right now. So I think that the Browns are going to go more of a veteran route. I think they're just going to go with their favorite best player on the board. Either whether it's Abdul Carter, put him opposite Myles Garrett, or it's Travis Hunter and you just give him a playmaker on offense or defense. So number three, kind of spoiled it. Number three is New York Giants, Travis Hunter. This one's kind of shocking to me, but if Travis Hunter is there on the board, I could definitely see it happening just because I think a Malik Neighbors and Travis Hunter combo or receiver would be absolutely crazy. I do think the best way to use Travis Hunter, even though he's going to want to be a receiver, the best way to use him, I think, would be start him at corner and then let him come in certain situational receiving. Because then you can kind of manage him a little bit more and keep him more not as tired, and he's more of a effectiveness player in the game. Or maybe he's not going to be able to go both ways at all in the NFL. But I think he's going to be more of a spot receiver guy, more of a full-time corner is what I would do. But I think most teams are going to take him as a receiver. So the Giants, they really do need playmakers on offense. They really just got Malik Neighbors. That's about it. They do need a quarterback, but as everybody says, everybody knows it's a very weak quarterback class. So there's not very much that you can do if a guy's just not on the board, and you pretty much in the draft just need to take best player. And maybe they'll just wait, try to do a bridge quarterback, maybe keep Drew Lock and play for next year with the much stronger quarterback class. Maybe go Quinn Ewers in a later round, give him a shot. Who knows? But right now, best player on the board, Travis Hunter. Number four, you got Ted McMillan. The Patriots, I think they just need playmakers, and this makes sense in theory. Um, if Abdul Carter's not there, if Travis Hunter's not there, you pretty much just go who your favorite is, or you're trying to surround Drake May, whether it's one of the tackles like a Kelvin Banks, or a lot of people have had Will Campbell going here, have him rising up boards. But Tedero McMillan makes sense. He's huge target. He's 6'5". He pretty much catches everything, and he has crazy speed. So in this article, they're comparing him to a T. Higgins. So you kind of got to watch in free agency. So if the Patriots go and they get a T. Higgins, maybe this leans them away from drafting a Tedero McMillan. Or maybe you combine both of them because your receivers are not that good, and one of your best receivers is an undrafted rookie from LSU, a Butte from a couple of years ago. But this definitely makes sense. You're surrounding Drake May with weapons, trying to get him the best they can be. The Jaguars here just go best player available. They need corner. Depending on who their head coach is going to be, the rumor right now is Ben Johnson might be going to Vegas, and Robert Saleh actually has a huge opportunity to be the Jacksonville Jaguars' next head coach. So that makes sense. So maybe Robert Saleh is going to one defender. You got Will Johnson here. You got Mason Graham on the board. So yes, you can see what happens. You don't need a quarterback. You got Trevor Lawrence. They would get kind of their Sauce Gardner type guy if Robert Saleh ended up coming in. But he's a lockdown corner. He has crazy IQ and feet. His ball skills are really, really good. He's going to be one of the better rookie corners like we've seen in the last couple of years. I think he's going to come on and be an instant great type of player. You're not really need him to develop much. He's just going to come in and be an instant impact, kind of like a Sauce Gardner. And this makes sense. Jaguars, you're just going best available at this point. So number 6, the Raiders actually luck out. Maybe they hire Ben Johnson and they get their quarterback of the future. I think this is where Dion, if he doesn't get the Cowboys job, I think this is where Dion wants Shador to go, is Vegas. And pretty much if Shador is on the board at 6, I think this is the lowest possible place that he could go because Vegas is just going to want the quarterback. Mark Davis, Tom Brady. Mark Davis is going to want the splash move. Shador seen as like the flashier, splashy guy just because he's Dion's son. He's more of the floor level guy, though. He's not so much of a higher risk. You kind of know what you're going to get with Shador. I don't really like his pocket presence, though. I think he's kind of puts pressure on himself and doesn't really help out his O-line too much. But you just got to see how it works out. Number 7, Mason Graham. I think this would be a great pick for the New York Jets. The New York Jets need to get one of 3 players in this draft at number 7. You either get Mason Graham, you either get Will Johnson, or you get Abdul Carter. Now Abdul Carter's probably not going to be there. Will Johnson, if Abdul's on the board, then they're going to go Will Johnson to the Jaguars. So Mason Graham is a great spot. Ever since they traded John Franklin Myers last year to the Denver Broncos, it completely collapsed the defense, especially after Robert Saleh got fired as well. But pretty much from the start this season, once JFM was traded, they couldn't stop anybody from running the ball. Everybody just ran the ball down their throat pretty much, and you could really tell Quentin Williams was doing his thing, but if there's no supporting next to him, it's going to be a lot harder. You're going to have Jermaine Johnson coming back from an Achilles injury, so it's going to take him a little bit. He might not start the season. You do have Will McDonald and Mason Graham next to Quentin Williams. I think this would be the best pick. He's a really high floor type of guy, and him and Quentin Johnson would be really fun together. So why not? Best player on the board. So Carolina Panthers at 8, they're taking Jalen Walker, edge here. He's it could be an off-ball linebacker, outside linebacker, edge rusher type guy. He's definitely going to be put in the edge rusher role, probably if he's taken this high. Jalen Walker, to be honest, he's kind of more of a mystery in this draft. Um, he does have the tools. He's just going to need to be developed. Um, that's what happens with a lot of these Georgia guys. A lot of these guys have the tools, they're freak athletes, but they really are raw and they need to be developed on that edge pass rush. So this makes sense for the Carolina Panthers. And you're trying to replace Brian Burns from a couple years ago, and you just need to get better defensively to upgrade one of the worst defenses. Number 9, New Orleans Saints going Malachi Starks from Georgia. This might be a little bit early. It's weird that you haven't seen one of the tackles yet. If a tackle was going to go, you would think this would be the first prime spot. If all of them are still on the board with Will Johnson or Will Campbell, it hasn't been taken. But Malachi Starks, the Saints do need a safety. Tyrann Mathieu getting old. Their defense wasn't very good. Everybody on the Saints is kind of getting old. You don't really have any young, crazy players. So Malaga starts would make sense. Kind of bring him in, get mentored by Matthew, play next to him for a little bit, and then he's going to be pretty much a high football IQ playmaker for the Saints. But I really do think this would be a tackle spot, trying to replace Trevor Penning. But they also need to hire a head coach, so who knows? Number 10, the first tackle off the board, Josh Simmons. Ohio State. He is coming off the knee injury. He could have been tackle 1 in this class, and he was kind of trending that way in the middle of the season. He was playing really good until that knee injury. Now it kind of depends. He's definitely going to be a first round pick, I think, but it's just where he goes. Is it going to be later in the first? Is it going to be first tackle off the board, Chicago Bears? It's really going to matter what kind of reports they get from doctors at the combine when they get their hands on them. Chicago Bears makes sense. They definitely need offensive line help, although they do need more interior offensive line. So I think Will Campbell could have been a better pick because Will Campbell has the upside of playing guard or tackle. But Josh Simmons makes sense. He's one of the top 3 tackles in my opinion, and he could have been tackle number 1 if he never got hurt. 49ers, I do think this pick is going to be in the trenches. It's either going to be offensive line or it's going to be defensive line, and they're going to try to get more physical. It's going to be one of those two. Right here, it's still kind of shocking. Will Campbell and Kelvin Banks are on the board, and you go Ahmed Mabu, if I'm saying that correctly. He has the ability to be guard or tackle. He's a little bit more of a kind of athletic type build. And he's more of a mauler, which could fit the 49ers, but they do run the zone scheme, so you kind of want the outside zone type of guys. But if he's athletic enough and he can get there in the zone scheme, him at guard or tackle would be a great fit. Maybe you're trying to look for the Trent Williams replacement. He's getting up there in age. He's about 38. So makes sense to you're going to be offensive line or defensive line here. Dallas Cowboys, they could have, if Will Campbell or Kellen Banks is on the board, this could have been a good pick here. But maybe even Genty could have been a good pick. I do think the Dallas Cowboys, if both of them are on the board, it is either going to be Luther Burden or Ashton Genty. This makes sense. Cowboys do need more weapons. Also, they need to hire a head coach. They just let McCarthy go. Um, Luther Burton is one of the speedy guys. I don't know how he's gonna fit in there at the Cowboys though, because he's very similar to CD Lamb in my opinion. Let's see, five more answers in the passing game outside CD Lamb. Yeah, that makes sense. He's explosive on all three levels, but I just think he's very similar. I think a Genty would make sense here, or an offensive lineman. I do. I could see him going receiver. I just don't know about Luther Burton to the Cowboys, just because he's just so similar at their main weapon. I feel like that you'd want more of a big body type of guy, like a I know Tedero McMillan's not going to fall this far, but a guy more like that. Miami Dolphins, this would be a dream scenario for the Miami Dolphins if Will Campbell fell to 13 to them. They desperately need offensive line help. And if Will Campbell, one of the arguably tackle number one, and if it don't work out tackle, you could easily slot him in and be one of the best guards. I do think he struggles a little bit kind of with speedier guys, and he's not like super strong. If there's a tougher, stronger guy, he does kind of struggle against them. I've seen it against the Texas A&M Edge when they played them with Scorington, but he's seen this tackle number one, and at 13, if he falls this far, you just take him, and it fits very well to Miami Dolphins. This is another popular pick, and the Indianapolis Colts going Tyler Warren from Penn State. I think his stock went up a little bit. Former quarterback in high school, and he showed out in the college football playoffs against Notre Dame. Him and Bill Carter had crazy games. So both their stocks are going to be going up. I do think the Colts could look for more of a defensive solution as well, but I think tight end's the most popular pick here, whether it's him or Loveland from Michigan. I think Tyler Warren fits very well with the Colts and would be a great pick. Line of Falcons going with Stewart from Texas A&M. This fits very well as well. Most of the time in this draft, it's going to be best available. They need defensive line help. They just need defensive help in general. They spent the last 4 or 5 years drafting offense, so they kind of have their secondary in place with Jesse Bates, with the corner that's one of the best in the league. That is blanking out of my head right now. I can't think of the name too, but get more of a physical presence up front, be able to dominate the line of scrimmage. This makes sense. Arizona Cardinals, Derek Harmon. I do think that they could potentially go receiver here as well. But Derek Harmon's a great D tackle in Oregon. He's more of like the better pass rusher on the inside, so he plays very violently. He's probably gonna be one of the best pass rushing defense tackles in this draft. So I think this is a great fit for the Arizona Cardinals as well. Cincinnati Bengals, Michael Williams. I think that this could be a trade up spot. With the Bengals trading up with somebody to maybe go grab a Michael Williams, but here he falls to him. And Michael Williams is, like I've said about Georgia guys earlier, they're very raw talents and they need to be developed with the coaches. And he kind of reminds me of a Trayvon Walker from a couple years ago that the Jaguars took. He's actually developed in a pretty good edge rusher. And I think he's very similar to that. He could be in the top 10 if a team falls in love with him and thinks that they could develop him. And he's really just going to need the right situation. And I think this puts him in a good spot to be opposite Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson could be coming up on a contract in a year or two. He's getting kind of older. So have him play with Henderson for a year or two, then maybe let Henderson walk after he gets older. Number 18, Kelvin Banks. This is wild too. I think Kelvin Banks is a top 10 guy. I think he could go to the Chicago Bears all the way at 10. He could even go all the way to the Patriots or Jaguars at 4 or 5. But Seattle Seahawks falls into his lap. I could easily see Kelvin Banks being tackle number one in this class and being the very first tackle off the board. He's been a guy that's really been consistent for the Texas offensive line. And he's another guy. All these pretty much tackles in this class could be moved into guard. And he's one of my favorite. He might even be over Will Campbell for me. And the Seahawks just pretty much get a need here on the offensive line. Buccaneers, they're going James Pierce from Tennessee. James Pierce, the guy that even at the beginning of the year, when people were doing way too early mocks, he was seen as one of the guys that could potentially be the number one overall pick if he has a breakout year. He kind of struggled a little bit, and he really didn't produce like people thought he was. Although he is very disruptive in the SEC, and he's done a lot in that conference at Tennessee. He was kind of fell off a little bit. I could easily see him falling around the spot. Buccaneers, it fits very well for them as well. You got Vita Vea up there on that line, pretty much controlling it. They need an edge rusher. Um, I don't know how much I like James Pierce, but he's definitely a more defined and more ready to go type player that could step in and play right away for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are going to be looking to make a playoff run next year, depending on how Baker Mayfield plays. This is one Denver Broncos going with the Ashton Genty. Ashton Genty falls a little bit in this one. A lot of people have him going to the Cowboys, but I think this is a perfect fit. And I think this will be a great situation for Ashton Genty. You have not Sean Sean Payton as the Denver Broncos head coach, and I think that he would found very creative ways to get him the ball. He had Alvin Kamara in New Orleans, and he's pretty much coming in with one of the better rookie quarterbacks in Bo Nix. They could end up going receiver as well, but a lot of receivers just aren't on the board here, and they're going to be kind of falling off a little bit. So you can wait a little bit on receiver, and you pretty much just get a better offensive weapon to replace Javonte Williams because you don't have a very good running back in place. Pittsburgh Steelers, this is a very common one too. Them going Emeka Ibuka. This one a lot of people have. I think, in my opinion, in the offseason, they're going to be looking to move on from George Pickens. I think he's become an attitude problem that Mike Tomlin's kind of gotten tired of. That seems to happen quite a bit, quite often with the Steelers. It happened with Chase Claypool. It happened with Juju Smith-Schuster. It happened with Antonio Brown. So I think George Pickens is just going to be the next line of that, and they're kind of just tired of his antics. Mecca Ibuka was a guy that was going to be a first round pick last year if he came out. He ended up staying. He didn't have overall the greatest season at Ohio State, but he was definitely one of the leading receivers there. And he pretty much just kept the stock where it was. He kind of reminds me of what Chris Olave was. Chris Olave could have came out as a first round pick before that, before his class, but they stayed another year and ended up coming out a year later and was still a first round pick and went around that 12 to 13 range. I think this is a perfect spot for Emeka Ibuka, who is going to be filling a need for the Steelers. And hopefully, who knows who's going to be their quarterback. Los Angeles Chargers going with Colson Loveland. This is another very common pick. They either have him going here or to the Colts. And I think this makes sense. Jim Harbaugh recruits this guy, got him to Michigan, and Jim Harbaugh used to be his head coach, so he's probably going to be in love with him, and want to be able to have him on the Chargers. And one of the Chargers' worst spots, their starting tight ends, Will Dissly. Dissly's good for certain situations on blocking, and he had a couple of catches this year, but they definitely need a bigger receiving target at the tight end spot, and he's more of a fast, reliable catcher. And I think this would give them a whole nother weapon out of their play action that Jim Harbaugh likes to run whenever he runs the ball. It's going to give them better play action ability that Justin Herbert's going to be able to hit. Green Bay Packers going Tyreek Williams. This one's kind of a little bit of shock. I feel like this is higher than where most people have Tyreek Williams. Um, I think definitely the common spot for the Packers is going to be a corner. I think that they're going to go corner here. Whether it is Cheville out of ECU, or someone else. I think that they really need to go corner, especially with the new news with Jair Alexander is going to be out all next year. Um, I think their interior is kind of set. They could use it, but I think this is more of a corner spot, in my opinion. Minnesota Vikings going running back. I don't know if I've necessarily seen this happening. I definitely think after that game against the Rams that just happened, I think that they definitely need to go with the next guy on the board, Tyler Booker. I think Tyler Booker is going to run up the board a little bit, but talking about this pick, Caleb Johnson at a running this is a stacked running back class. There's gonna be multiple running backs taken very high. I don't know about in the first round. That's kind of fallen off a little bit. I think it's gonna be a lot of them are gonna be picked in the second round. I don't necessarily think the Vikings go to it. They still got Aaron Jones there that they assigned, who got released. They still have Cam Akers as a backup. I think that they're kind of set. I think that they need to go more interior offensive line help. Um, as he says here in his mock draft that they need to address the offensive line. I think Tyler Booker, he sees them going more in free agency, but I think Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama, would be a better fit here, as we see it here. Houston Texans going with Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama. This is one of the guys. He has one of the best pass pros in this draft. He's been a 3-year starter at Alabama, and I think he is going to go higher than what people think. A lot of people have him around this mid 20s. I think he's going to go in like the mid teens. He could even go even higher if a team falls in love with him. But I think he could be a guy maybe in the top 10. That's people maybe need an offensive lineman, but they don't want to take a risk on one, so then they trade back. If Banks and Simmons and Campbell are off the board, and they trade back and go with a guy like Tyler Booker. But I think this would be a great fit with the Texans. You still got Kenyon Green in there. He hasn't been the best for him. And you can put him next to Larmy Tunsil or on the other side with Titus Howard, that's also been moving in. You can replace one of them. And Tyler Booker is going to be one of the, I think he's going to be a great guard in the NFL. Los Angeles Rams, I think this fits perfect. They definitely need to go best tackle on the board. And they get Josh Cornerly from Oregon. I think this was you're pretty much trying to find a replacement for Note Bloom, your left tackle. He's probably gonna be gone in free agency. The O line has kind of been average without Andrew Whitworth when he retired a couple of years ago. So I definitely think you need to get a replacement in a draft like this where it's mostly O line and D lineman type guys. Um, and you're pretty much just taking best available in this draft. And I think that this is pretty much where they're going to go. I agree with this. This makes total sense. Commanders going Mike Green, edge out of Marshall. This guy is someone that a lot of people have in the second round, but he's going to be flying up boards. I'm telling you, he's a freak athlete. They compare him to Dante Fowler here. He had about 17 or 20 something sacks this year. I can't remember the actual like full number. It's around that 17 to 21 mark sacks this year. He led college football with it with the most sacks in the NFL. He's a younger guy that can develop. Um, yeah, definitely think he's going to be like a Will McDonald type guy that is kind of like a rotational pass rusher at the start, and then he's going to end up taking over in the next couple of years for whatever team drafts him. So I think somebody at the end of the first round here is going to get a great snag with Mike Green. I think he's going to rise up the boards though in the next couple of months, especially after the combine. But the Commanders, one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. They could go interior defensive line if the right guys on the board, but I don't hate this. Mike Green would be a good pick for the Commanders. Baltimore Ravens, Donovan Jackson, offensive tackle from Ohio State. I definitely think there's some tackles here that have not gone that he must have ranked lower than most people. You got Ursay from Minnesota, I think is going to be a great offensive tackle. I think that's somebody could pick. I think that Ursay would be a great pick here for the Ravens, but offensive line is definitely the weakest link for them. They struggled at the beginning of the year, even though they're kind of coming in their own using Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry in the run game. They definitely struggled, I would say, most of the year. So you're going to look to upgrade that on the interior or on that right tackle spot is where they're really struggling. But you pretty much Ravens are going to go best offensive tackle on the board on that they like the best. Buffalo Bills, you got Siobhan Reveal from ECU. This makes sense. Kamir Elam has been okay. but you definitely need to upgrade there on that secondary. They could end up going with a D tackle like a Kenneth Grant that's still on the board at Michigan, because I think that they could do way better with upgrading their run defense, because their run defense is not very good. I guess we'll see against the Ravens this year or this week. But I'm fine with this. Corner makes sense. I think I think they either go D tackle or corner. Philadelphia Eagles. I think this is another guy along with Jack Sawyer that's gonna rise up boards for Ohio State. JT Tulamula. And he played great in the college football playoffs. You have the championship next week. Um, this is somebody that's going to be a good edge rusher for the Eagles. I think they have their interior defense line kind of set up. They're gonna want to get an edge rusher just because they signed Bryce Huff after they let Hassan Reddick go, and Bryce Huff just has not panned out, and he's not been very good. And they're gonna want to move on from Bryce Huff. And then Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham are possibly moving on. Brandon Graham's old. Josh Sweat's going to be a free agent. And Howie Roseman can't pay everybody, so they're going to be looking to upgrade the edge here in the draft. Kansas City Chiefs get a great complimentary piece in Kenneth Grant. This is a guy I think could go to several teams here that are looking to upgrade their defense line. Commanders could take a swing on him, and a couple people like that. And the rich pretty much just get richer with Kenneth Grant falling in their lap. He'd be a good complimentary piece of quick Chris Jones. Chris Jones has been hurt the last couple weeks. And he's kind of had his deal with injuries, even though he just signed a new deal. So who knows what will happen. And then lastly, he has the Detroit Lions going with Nick Scorington, edge out of Texas A&M. I really like Scorington. I think looking at the film where he played Will Campbell, he caused Will Campbell some issues. Most people do have a day 2 draft grade on him, but I think he's definitely going to go in the first round as well. There's just so many edge rushers and defense linemen in this class that it kind of hurts him a little bit that he's kind of just going to be in the middle of the pack there just because there's so many. If this was a weaker edge class, I think he would be one of the first edges taken off the board. But he had a great game against Will Campbell, one of the top tackle talents, and the Lions are definitely going to be wanting an edge. Zadarius Smith might be gone. Aiden Hutchinson's going to be back, and they're pretty much just going to be looking for a guy to pair up with Aiden Hutchinson. There is a couple guys in this draft that I think could go in the first round that he does not have. I think an Irsay out of Minnesota is going to be a first round pick. Somebody like the Ravens, somebody like that. Jack Sawyer, I think somebody could fall in love with him, end up taking him in the first round. Landon Jackson's another guy. He's kind of a freaky edge talent that I think he ends up getting a lot of pressures. And you could see definitely the loaded running back class that's going to come in the late second round. But that's my reaction to his mock draft. There's a couple guys I think fell here that he didn't have as high rated, like the Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell. But who really knows for the next couple months until after the combines and teams start to talk to these guys and start to interview them. But give me your thoughts and opinions on a lot of my takes down in the comments. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like and subscribe and watch out for the next video.
Yeah, feel like John Moran. Need a triple-double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got a couple. I don't drop the ball. Now I never fumble. I'm the MVP. Now I feel like Russell. Feel like John Moran. Need a triple-double. Told him check the stats. Yeah, I got a couple.